everybody. Welcome to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Gish, Crohn's warrior, IgA nephropathy warrior, and focused on food, fitness, and sharing the individual stories of IBD. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now let's get to it. Well, hi everyone. My guest today is Holly Fowler, who's been living with ulcerative colitis for nearly 14 years, hospitalized more times than she can count, including once in a foreign country, and despite her diagnosis, has proceeded to have a career in corporate marketing, travel the world, run a marathon, and build her own business. She's here to share her journey with IBD and how she balances and lives her life to the fullest. Thank you so much for joining me today, Holly, and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So we're going to start off and jump into what is my favorite part of the podcast, and that's hearing your IBD story. So why don't you go ahead and jump in and share your journey and talk us about when you were first diagnosed?
Sure. So I was diagnosed in 2008 at the age of 19, and it was actually a really sudden onset of ulcerative colitis, which is not the case for many people I have come to learn. Many people end up having years of testing done before they come to a conclusive diagnosis. And, it's like good, bad to have such a sudden onset. But I literally woke up one morning and had an upset stomach and it never got better. But as long as I can remember, I always had stomach issues. In the third grade, I was taken out of school and I went to a children's hospital for testing because my stomach issues were so bad. And all they came up with was lactose intolerance.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's laughable now, but I was 95. So things were a little different back then, sure.
Yeah. But you did struggle with it for years then. If you'd had symptoms since you were a kid, and that's so familiar to so many of us, where you just you brush off these things that you don't think anything of it until the big episode of whether it's a hospitalization or a flare or whatever it is. It's like the moment that something's really wrong.
Truly. I think back and I realize I did have that all along, maybe to a lesser degree, but I, had severe stomach issues my whole childhood. To this day, it's kind of a joke now. I don't crave ice cream because that I don't have that childhood memory of loving ice cream because I was never allowed to have it. In the 90s, we didn't have dairy-free options. You just went without. So I never cream as a child. So I don't crave it today as like a childhood summer favorite.
Makes sense. So take me through the rest of your journey. So you kind of struggled a little bit as a kid, it sounds like, but kind of keep us on the journey.
So I woke up one morning, had a stomach ache, and it only progressed much, much worse for the next week and a half. And my mom is a nurse, and she threw everything at me for the flu, the stomach, like any stomach virus. And I went to multiple doctors, and they would send me home with something like Prevacid and some sort of antacid. And so finally I was hospitalized and quickly diagnosed and put on Humira, put on Lialda. And I was told at diagnosis that if I took these medications that I could eat and drink and do whatever I wanted. I remember specifically as a college student, like, how is this going to change my life? Like, am I going to my diet? And my doctor said, as long as you take this, you can eat whatever you want. And oh gosh, I loved that doctor. I really did. But it sent me on a path where, like, okay, I'm a college student. So I did what college students do and basically wrecked my body further.
And eating anything you wanted.
Eating anything I wanted.
Because you were 19, you said, when you got the diagnosis, right? And did they do a colonoscopy or anything at that time, or did they just know right away when your mom had finally taken you into the hospital? Did they just know at that first appointment, or did it take a few meetings?
It was during that first hospitalization that I got my diagnosis. I was too inflamed to do a full colonoscopy. I hold my stomach as if
You're remembering the
I was too inflamed to have the full colonoscopy, but I did had a flex
Mhm,
sigmoidoscopy, which is, like a partial
mhm.
colonoscopy. And they could see the inflammation and the ulcers through just that. And also my dad had Crohn's disease, so they were already looking
Oh,
for it.
so it's
And
definitely in the family.
it does, yes. And it was lucky that my doctor was also my dad's doctor.
Oh,
So he
wow.
knew the whole, like, the family history really well. So I was lucky in that they were already looking for Crohn's or colitis.
Hmm. Now, with your dad having IBD, so you mentioned you're in college and you're been told you can eat whatever you want, and so then you start your college journey. Did your dad ever question that advice, or was he kind of in the same boat of just being able to eat whatever he wanted? So it was kind of like go off to college and have fun.
You know, it's interesting. I forget sometimes that he has
Hmm.
Crohn's, actually, because his is so mild that he
Hmm.
hasn't taken medication in over a decade. He
Wow.
was I think he took like one round of it. He had it like, and then he hasn't had a flare up since.
Mhm.
Milder,
Yeah.
is maybe some IBS, but he had a much milder experience leading up to his diagnosis. And then after he took that, it was like he was fine. And
So
so,
no reason for him to question the just take your medications, eat what you want, and go live life.
exactly. Yep. And so I wasn't told anything else. I mean, and that's really, at the time, thinking back, that's what I wanted to hear. Obviously,
Yeah.
as going into my sophomore year of college, I didn't want this to derail my life in any way. I didn't even want to acknowledge it. And so I, like, I was thinking of it as an inconvenience, like, oh gosh,
Hmm.
am I gonna have to give anything up for this? And they said no. And so I just took them at face value. I'm like, I'm not going to dig deeper into this. If they
Hmm.
say medication and do whatever I want, then that's what I'm going to do. And my entire college experience, thankfully, I graduated on time, which is a total miracle. But I was in and out of the hospital every 6 months, and they were constantly increasing that medication and increasing it
Hmm.
and changing it. And I was in the biggest brain fog of my life. I was sick. I don't think I ever fully got into remission. And still, they just kept increasing the medication. Like, nothing changed. I mean,
Oh.
yeah, it was a wild time in college.
And that
Just,
was throughout the whole pretty much 3 years if you were going into your sophomore year, the whole rest of the 3 years of college.
yes, including a study abroad in Spain, which was, you mentioned my hospitalization and
Hmm.
important. That was it. I studied abroad in Spain, and I was so sick right in the middle of it and was hospitalized for 8 days in Spain.
What was that experience like being overseas and going to a hospital in Spain? Were you fluent? If you were studying abroad, were you at least partially fluent?
I was a Spanish major,
Hmm.
but at that time I was just getting to my advanced level classes, and I did not speak fluent Spanish. I could, like, kind of understand it.
Hmm.
That was the most traumatic hospital experience, and I've had a lot, but that
Yeah.
was the traumatic one because I was so sick and so far from home, and my host mother spoke zero English. And
Hmm.
so our communication was very broken up, and they did not have interpreters at the hospital, and they did not consider bedside manner an essential part of the hospital experience. Basically, it was lay back, let us take care of you, do our job, don't ask questions. And I had
Wow.
so many questions and they didn't speak English. So I thankfully had friends from my program coming through checking on me who spoke better Spanish than I did. And they were
Hmm.
asking questions for me. But it was, bare bones experience. There was not even, I haven't thought about this for a while. They didn't even have an electric bed to like
Hmm.
and raise the bed up if you want to sit up. They had a metal tool on your bedside that you had to get out of your bed, go to the end of the bed, crank it up if
And
you
you had
wanted
to
to.
do it yourself?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They
Unless
didn't.
for me, like they didn't have bedside manner. They were just like in and out.
Hmm.
And I mean, I was hooked up to um, uh, IV fluids. At one point, I had liquid nutrition. And so I had tubes all over the place and having to I was so sick, having to crank my bed up and then crank it back down.
Oh,
It
no.
was very traumatic. Yeah.
What advice would you give for someone? Because there's a lot of us with IBD and we like to travel and go to different places, but I know that's a common fear that what happens if I get sick and I'm overseas or have to go to a hospital and I'm not in my home country? Are there some tips that you would give to people having gone through that experience yourself now?
Absolutely. And I will say that actually didn't deter me from traveling more. I actually went back to Spain a few
Hmm.
years later, taught English for a year, and I was super healthy, did not get hospitalized once. So I want to say that I still have the trip taught me. I would say be as prepared as possible. If you're going out of the country, take copies of your medical records, take copies of your prescriptions, and make sure that you're bringing plenty of your prescriptions. Maybe ask for an extra dose or an extra 30 days of the medication just in case, because you never know
Hmm.
what's going to happen. So always bring extras, always bring copies of everything. And if you do have to, if you're in the position of needing to be hospitalized, just taking a deep breath and, just trusting that these are
Hmm.
medical professionals that are there to help you. It may feel and look different. They may be speaking a different language, but they're still medical professionals that are there to help you. And, you're at their discretion of how they want to treat you. And so I think just having taking a deep breath,
Hmm.
calming yourself and focusing, because it's also a mental game of,
Yeah.
being outside of the country and not in your comfort zone, like very outside of your comfort zone. But yeah, just being as prepared as you can ahead of time and being conscious of especially with IBD, being conscious of your food and drink choices and lifestyle. Like, yes, take some liberties when you're traveling, enjoy the food and the culture, but don't go so crazy that you're going to put yourself in that situation. So just being very mindful of your intake overall and your lifestyle while you're traveling.
Those are very good tips. And along those same lines, it got me thinking, what was it like to travel with your medication? Because you mentioned at that point your doses had kept getting increased, and so you were definitely taking the medications with you. Was that challenging to be gone for so long abroad and then taking medication with you and getting it resupplied while you were there?
It was when I was studying abroad. I was on different medication when I went back to teach English. So studying abroad was challenging because I was on Humira, which has to be refrigerated. And it was a really long flight. And so it was challenging. I had to bring a cooler to make sure that it stayed the right temperature. That sometimes meant having to go to a food court at the airport
Mhm.
and getting extra ice or something, just being mindful of that. And then also, one thing I didn't take into consideration is the refrigerator temperature in Spain was slightly off from the refrigerator temperature in the US, which is
Mhm.
not you just don't think about. And at the time, I blamed the refrigerator temperature because it's just a little bit warmer and I thought it went bad. But I didn't take into consideration that I was studying abroad in Spain at the age of 20 years old. Like everyone else, like I don't quite think it was the medication being like 5. I think it was more of, quite frankly, like the amount of alcohol that I consumed and the amount like partying and like lack of sleep, and my entire routine was off, and I had a blast, but I definitely drove my body into the ground. So at the time I'm like, oh, darn that medication temperature, and didn't like give myself credit for how I was wrecking the body.
Were you thinking that it wasn't working? Like, this doesn't work over here because it's gone bad and
Yeah.
it warmed up 2 degrees.
Yeah. And then the medication experience of being gone the next time, I was gone for 1 semester. So 4 months the first time studying abroad. And then after college, I went back for a year. And surprisingly, I was much healthier for the longer period of time because, I mean, for various reasons, I learned my lesson. But medication that was more generic, and it was not a biologic. It was pill form, and it was easier to refill at the pharmacy. And actually, I loved it because it was so cheap. It was so cheap. And as a, I'm trying to remember, it's been so long, but as a foreigner, like expat going to work at, as a part of the government, you get a certain type of insurance. And so you do get a little bit of a discount being an expat worker. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Very specific information, but if anyone wants long term, I've been there.
That's good. So take me back on your journey. So you graduate college, it sounds like you're kind of really struggling with the disease in the sense that it's not getting better. The medication's increasing and you're fighting it, so to speak. So what happens next?
So I come back from Spain. I live at home and, try to start my young professionals career, and still I was on a medication in those days called Imuran. And boy, do I not recommend that medication. It's ancient. It was originally made for kidney transplant patients. And I had just this massive, massive brain fog due to this one medication I was on. And I just couldn't function. I felt like I was just walking with this dark cloud over my head where I just couldn't focus. My memory was terrible. And I was desperate. So I found a holistic doctor in my town where I lived, and he opened my eyes. I started exploring the idea of nutrition and alternative therapies, and just started digging into my own research, found this great holistic doctor.
What prompted you to start doing that? Was it just that the medication wasn't working and so it got your wheels turning? Like, what else can I do? Or what started you down that path?
I think I just got to a point where I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I knew this medication, the medication actually was working. I was on, so it was like the first medication that was helping, and I felt like I was in remission, but I felt terrible. And so I had this realization where, like, I'm going to feel terrible whether I'm in remission or not. I just don't accept that. So I had been diagnosed for, I think, 5 years at that point. And I was just fed up. I got to this boiling point where there has to be something else. And I think Instagram was like 2 years old at that point. So I'm going to age, but so social media access wasn't really a thing. And so I went down this dark rabbit hole on the internet and just looking to see what other people are doing. And I started discovering nutrition. And I already ate, healthy. I use that in air quotes. I was relatively healthy and health minded, but the fact that there was so much more room that I could explore with nutrition. I was just really interested in that. And I was at the point, and as a health coach, I see this in my clients too. You have to get to a point where you are willing to change everything to feel better. You have to be willing to do it yourself. And I just completely overhauled my entire diet.
Mm-hmm.
I experimented with the help of this holistic doctor, just trying, and it was a very strict diet. I don't even think there's a name for it, honestly, but it would be almost kind of like an AIP paleo style
Mm-hmm.
diet. And I had a boyfriend at the time who thought I had an eating disorder. It was so strict.
You're like, no, I'm just trying to be healthy and feel better.
Yeah, like you just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I love food. I love that I'm doing this for a very specific purpose. And I actually saw a lot of results from it. And once I started feeling better, I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing?
Mm-hmm.
And, I eased up from that very strict diet and started re-entering things in my diet. And then I moved. So I lived in South Carolina. I started exploring that and got a job offer in California and moved to the Bay Area. And I feel like, because at that point in South Carolina, I was working in an office and I was making my own kombucha. I was exploring my own kefir, making my own bone broth, and I was bringing it to the office. And they were like, what is
I have gone down the exact same path. And so you are not alone. I used to have, you'd grow the mother for the kombucha, and I had like these 3 jars, and I'm rotating the mother all the time. And then I'm Googling, what do I do with the extra mother when it's too old? And then I made my own kefir. I've heard it both ways. I don't know what it is, but I got the grains. I was doing the raw milk on the counter and all the same different things. So you're not alone, because sometimes I think about that and it's like so much work, and my goodness, who else is doing this? So I'm glad to have finally met someone.
it's me. I'm doing but so I moved to, well, I guess back up a little bit. So I, living at home and starting my marketing career in corporate marketing, I really got into running as I started feeling better. And I went a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further, and loved it and just felt so good. And I was completely off my medication, eating this very, very, very healthy diet and running. And it felt so nice. And I started training for a marathon. And no, I was still so new to this alternative path. And I fully understand inflammation in the body and what can cause it, and how like stress is a main factor, and stress can come from various parts of life. And it didn't even occur to me that the physical stress of training for a marathon could, despite everything else, could put me into a flare up. I was completely off my medication, going all natural. And it was like 3 weeks before the marathon, and I started flaring after I promised my mom that if I felt symptoms, that I would stop training, and I didn't. I was like,
oh no.
I'm doing this. I'm at like mile 18. I'm going to do this. And so I actually ran that marathon in a full flare, which do not recommend. I don't recommend. I'm so proud that I did it overall, but I feel like I could have done it a little bit differently. So
what did it take for you to recover after that flare up? Because you'd gone, I'm going to ask you first about the flare up and how you recovered, but it sounds like you pretty much at that point, you had made some major lifestyle changes, overhauled your diet, gotten rid of the medications, ran the marathon, put yourself in a flare. So talk to me about how you got out of that flare up, and then rewind a little bit and share kind of what your diet was like before and what it had gotten to at that point, and kind of what those big changes you think were.
Yeah. So that flare up actually was pretty hard to get out of because I wasn't on any medication. So I was starting from ground zero. And my doctor wasn't very happy with me that I quit my medicine. um, so I went back. I think I'm trying to remember. I did the prednisone thing. I restarted Humira and got myself out of the flare, went back into that strict diet. And I mean, honestly, it took months for me to feel back to myself. And I mean, on top of that, my body was really stressed out physically from that marathon. So that didn't help the healing process, I believe. So I did have to go the traditional route, and it did get me traditional plus the, so it did take me a while to get back to normal. Yeah.
So what does your normal look like now? What is kind of that diet, the changes you made, the lifestyles? Talk me through some of those things.
Yeah. So today, and because the stricter diet is sometimes required, but typically I feel my best in a paleo style diet where I eat all of the fruits, all of the vegetables, proteins, meats, and if I'm feeling really good, I might eat some rice or might eat some beans, but that's not really typical. For a little diversity, I like to add some beans, but that's very rare. So yeah, paleo is kind of where my equilibrium, where when I'm feeling my best. Sometimes if I'm in full remission, then, I might have like a couple bites of gluten if it's a real bites of dairy, but generally I like the paleo lifestyle and diet. And in terms of like more lifestyle stuff, I feel like stress was a really big trigger for me. I noticed looking back in college, I always flared around finals. I always flared when I had big projects at work. And more recently, in the last 2 years, I really took up meditation and journaling as a part of my morning routine, and just, practicing deep breathing in the moment of stress when that comes up, and just being more cognizant of how to manage it before it gets out of control, and just being aware of it. And then moving my body every day. So I am not at the moment. I'm actually recovering from COVID. I no longer have it, but when I'm feeling good, I like to work out every day. And even in flare up, I still move every day. Sometimes, it looks a lot different. Remission. It's more of like a walk around the block or doing some gentle yoga or stretching.
Tell me a little bit about your fitness journey. It sounded like when you started feeling better, you picked up the running, and obviously running became a passion. So had fitness always been a passion, or is that really when it started? And what are some of the things you've done and learned over the years since you picked up that?
Oh man, my fitness journey. I've come to a really good place, but it's taken me a while to get here. I've always been very active, even pre-diagnosis. I think about, I don't know if it was just because probably because I was a teenager, I had a ton of energy, but I think back on days, like, man, I could do like 3 activities in one day. But in high school, I ran track and I took dance, and I just did all of the things. I liked being involved in all of the physical activities. I was also on the swim team for a year. So I just liked mixing it up and being really active. And in college and post-college, I got into running, and, running is challenging with ulcerative colitis because it's not consistent. So when you feel better, I love taking advantage of being able to work out. It's like one of my biggest joys in life because I never take it for granted. So anytime I feel good, I want to do it every single day. And that has gotten me in trouble in the past because I am an all or nothing kind of girl. And so hence the marathon running. And then when I couldn't run, I got into CrossFit
Mm-hmm.
and did CrossFit 5 times a week. And then I got sick. And so I've noticed that I just would go all out on fitness and just would go, I mean, it was ridiculous, go to the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And now where I'm at is just a total feeling of gratitude to work out at all,
Mm-hmm.
because I used to, I would do a marathon and then would be sick for 4 months. And then I would do CrossFit and then wouldn't work out for 3 months. And so now I'm trying to keep this steady state where I am not necessarily training for anything. Oh, and Spartan races. Yeah, I'm ridiculous. And I noticed this pattern in myself where I would always do something extreme and then get sick, and something extreme and get sick. And so now I like to work out every day, but like to a lesser extreme. I just do
Mm-hmm.
it to feel good. I do it to make myself stronger and so that my body will be healthy for longer. So it's definitely been a long journey for me to learn. I learned the hard way over and over and over again. And now I just enjoy it for the fun of it.
So next time when you run a marathon and you tell your mom you're going to stop if you start having symptoms or feel bad, are you going to stop next time?
I don't know if I will.
So you're still figuring out the balance and allowing yourself to take an easy day.
Yeah, I told my husband recently that I think I still have one more marathon in me. But I want to do it in a very healthy, very sustainable way. I did not do it that way last time.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I paid for it. And so I want to see how it feels to run a marathon in a like healthy remission.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's in my mind, but I'm not training or planning for it. I'm just like letting it happen and just enjoying the mild workouts that I do from day to
Mm-hmm.
day for now.
And do you still do running? Is running still your go-to activity, or do you have a favorite?
It's still my favorite, but I had a little mild flare a couple of months ago. I was feeling really great last year and was getting like back into the swing of running. And then, a little baby flare hit and I wasn't able to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still my favorite form of exercise. It's just not consistent for me. So right now, my favorite is, and I'm not a Beachbody coach, but
Mm-hmm.
my mom has the login for Beachbody. And this isn't even like, an advertisement for it, but I like workouts right now where I can just push play in my living room and
Mm-hmm.
like up some weights and do it in between work meetings or
Mm-hmm.
something. That's my favorite right now, where I can just do it at home without, skipping a beat. Yeah.
What are some of your biggest tips for someone who is listening and thinking that they want to start being more active or start going on a fitness journey and balancing IBD? What tips would you have that would help them through that without following into the same kind of challenges you found yourself facing, where it's like, I'm ready to go all in? Because so many of us, especially with IBD, have that kind of personality where we just, and I think it's hard on our bodies, but we still do it anyway. So what kind of fitness tips would you share?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. So I would, and this is what I always say, is start by walking. No
Mm-hmm.
matter where you're at, whether you are in remission or you're coming out of a flare up or you're in a flare up, just start walking. Even if it's around the block, even if it's really slow pace, like just getting your body used to moving. I think walking is one of the best and most underutilized forms of movement, especially for IBD, because, when you get to running, it can kind of like have that jostling effect.
Not always desired.
Not, but walking is always great because, you're outside enjoying the fresh air. So, and you can always increase your pace or increase the distance, go up a hill. There's so many ways to start increasing the difficulty. So walking is always my first step that I recommend. And another one is yoga. Yoga is so good for IBD patients, especially because we spend a lot of time sedentary, laying in the bed, laying on the couch. And it's so good for stretching and just moving your body very gently without, jumping headfirst into a HIIT workout or CrossFit workout. So, and then from there, the next step I would recommend is starting with like really gentle body weight movements, like teaching your body how to do a squat. And you don't have to have weight. It doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't even have to be, there don't have to be a lot of reps, just like teaching your body how to do a squat, learning push-ups, learning the basics, and just getting your body into those movements. And from there, you can obviously like start adding weight and start adding more reps. So I think those are the 3 tips that I always recommend to IBD patients.
Mm-hmm. Those are great tips. I love those. And it makes sense because you also do this as your business now. So what I want to hear about is how you took this journey from corporate marketing to what you're doing now with health coaching and IBD coaching. I think you have group sessions for IBD patients and a whole bunch of different things. So tell me about that journey of switching to out of corporate marketing and sharing the journey of what you're doing now and exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, I started when I went down that path of alternative medicine and nutrition. I started getting a lot of questions from people about like they started noticing a difference in me and even my physical appearance. I looked healthier. And so I created a blog as a way to have one centralized location for all the answers to these questions. And from there, I wanted to do more. So I got a certification as a health coach, a certification as a personal trainer, and, continued doing that on the side while I had my corporate marketing career. And it was in 2020 when I had we all had a collective experience in 2020, still having it. And I also, at the same time, was having the worst flare of my life. It lasted a year and a half, which I've never had before. And I got to a point where I needed to do something else. And a lot of us felt this, I think, in 2020 when we kind of realized, like, what are we doing with our lives? Why aren't we going for what we actually want to do? And I realized this is exactly what I needed to focus on. And so I started putting the pieces together. I had these certifications, I had this blog and Instagram, and I hired a business coach to kind of put it all together and build a business. And so for the last year and a half, or almost 2 years, I've been building this business to help Crohn's and colitis patients just like myself, to help them navigate the diagnosis and be that beacon of light that I didn't have and wish that I had back in 2008 when I had no idea what I was doing, when I had no support, no guidance. So I'm building this business around the support that I wish that I had back then.
Is that what also prompted you to really become an advocate for IBD? It sounds like as you were making this transition, that's when you started your blog. How did you really become an advocate and think, I want to share my story and I want to reach out?
I never thought that this is where life would take me. But as I had built that blog and it really started connecting me with people who were going through similar experiences, it was so wild to me to be able to talk to people who were going through the same experience. I spent years being the only person that I knew with Crohn's or colitis. And when I would somehow connect with someone else who had it, it was mind blowing to me. It was just like literally gave me like the tingly feeling, warm feeling. It just made me feel, I don't know, like I wasn't alone. And really the first time I shared it publicly was right after my diagnosis. And I worked at a summer camp and they wanted me to share my story on video that they would project to like 1,000 people at this summer camp. And I did it. And that people came up to me afterwards, like, oh, my mom has it. My sister has it. I was just diagnosed with it. I'm like, what? So it's just being able to connect with other people and not feel alone is the most valuable thing for IBD. And so I spent years not talking about it and only talking to my parents about it and not even really my friends because it was weird and gross and like, I don't know. I just wanted to be normal. And the more I shared, the more people resonated with it. And so I started seeing the power in sharing my story and allowing other people to not feel alone. And so it's really got me to this place where I don't really have any shame about it. Maybe I should, but I tell stories that make other people uncomfortable because someone out there is going to resonate with it and feel like they're not alone. So that's the whole reason why I love sharing my stories, like really raw, really unedited.
Yeah.
To help other people.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. And I love that you're willing to share it so raw and to be so vulnerable, because when we're going through something that we don't know what it is, it's new to us, it's a new symptom, it's a new experience. I know even for myself, the first thing I do is I go straight to Google. I'm like, who else is having, blood in their bowel movements or having this weird pain or having something that I really don't want to talk to anybody about, and I don't really want to bring it up to my doctor if it might not be something. So let me see if other people are having it. And it's important. And if we didn't have other people's stories to go to and to lean on, then we'd be in the dark and so many questions unanswered. So thank you for sharing your unfiltered stories and experience and being an advocate for IBD. It's appreciated. So tell me, what is your blog? I know what it is and I love it. I love the name, but go ahead and tell the listeners what your blog is.
So my blog is kaleidoscopenutrition.com, spelled like colitis. And my Instagram is Halls Fowler, HOLLSFOWLER. And so it's got lots of blog, lots of information on it. And there they'll also find what I offer, which is one-on-one coaching. So I focus on nutrition, mindset, lifestyle, which includes like sleep and stress and anxiety and how to manage these things because it's all connected and it all can help or hurt IBD. And so I take my one-on-one clients through all of these things to help them get to a point where they are in remission and that they can stay there. And more recently, actually, it's launching this spring, the new cohort, a group for women with IBD, because I just feel like there are specific questions for women with IBD. Every woman that I've talked to has the same concerns. They are, they're busy. They are talking about pregnancy, about, whether they have hopes of having a baby one day, or they've gone through it and they should be connected to be able to experience balancing home life and work life and with an autoimmune disease. So there are just specific things that I feel are really special around women with IBD, and to be able to connect them, and while learning how to eat, how to sleep, how to manage stress to help yourself feel better. So that's launching this spring, and I think it's going to be really, really special.
That's wonderful. It sounds really exciting, and I love that it's going to be available and out there. One quick digression. I have to ask, the website name, Kaleidoscope Nutrition, is there an inspiration or a meaning that sparked the creativity behind that?
It's funny, and I'll give them credit for this. So my friends in college, two of my guy friends, they had this running joke where they always called me something different. They love puns and nicknames. And so when I was building this blog, I could not think of anything that would be memorable. I was coming up with a total blank. And so I texted them out of the blue. I'm like, if you were to create a blog, that was about this, what would it be? And that was their first response. Like, I knew it. I knew they would have the right answer. So
That's
that's
awesome. That's fun. So back to your blog. In addition to the services and the one-on-one and the different things that are coming that you do offer, I noticed you do actually have some really great free resources for people that are out there with IBD. And so I thought maybe you might want to mention, I saw that you have a workbook, a free Releasing the Shame audio guide and workbook. And I was wondering if you could tell us about that.
yeah, I have lots of freebies. That one is one that I love the most because yes, I have a free healing grocery list and a workout guide, and those are fantastic. But this Releasing Shame workbook, it's an audio file and also a workbook that you can take notes alongside the audio file. But it's just not something that's talked about that much. And it's the shame of having an autoimmune disease, specifically Crohn's and colitis. There's so much shame around it where we don't feel like we can share our experience, or at least our authentic, true experience. We have to sugarcoat it or just smile and say, I'm fine. And really, we're like dying on the inside. And so there's just been too much stigma for too long around living with a chronic illness. And again, like we talked about, it took me years before I said a word about what I was going through. And those were the sickest years of my life. And so now that I'm in a healthy place where I have accepted it, this is part of me, this is part of my life's journey. And I want other people to get to that place of acceptance as well, where they don't feel like they have to be ashamed of it, that they can share their experience and they can live authentically themselves.
That's a wonderful workbook. So tell me, is there any other question that we have not covered that you wanted to share with the audience, or a question that you have for me that I can answer?
I don't know. I feel like you did such a good job of covering it so well. Yeah, I think even oh my gosh, how am I going to phrase this? Something that I've been thinking about recently is that you can still do everything right and still get sick. And so there's no guarantee that you're going to stay healthy. And that's really terrible to say because this is my whole business, but truly, like, not feeling like you failed. Or I saw recently someone on Instagram posting about how, like, we didn't fail the medication failed us, because the verbiage in the medical community is like, okay, well, you failed Humira, so now we're on to Stelara, or you failed Stelara, so now we're on to Entyvio. Like, okay, well, we're not the failure here.
Yeah.
Like, it's the medication that just wasn't a good match for our specific, immune system makeup or whatever. So that's just something that I've been thinking about, and that's important for people to know, is that you can still do everything right and sometimes get sick because we have an autoimmune disease, but doing everything you can to keeping yourself healthy and keeping yourself in remission is still super, super important.
That's well said, and a great reminder. It's something I think about a lot too, because having interviewed and talked with so many different people and hearing their different stories, it's interesting how you really can be doing everything right, and sometimes it's just not enough, and your body just will let you know, and it's not enough, and it's okay, and it's not something that you did. And when you are feeling good, take those moments and really embrace them and do everything you can to make sure you feel the best. So I think that was a great reminder to share with people. So is there anywhere else online that people can find you? We've got your blog, kaleidoscopenutrition.com, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Your blog, your Instagram. Is there anywhere else that you like to refer people to go to?
So I am building up my YouTube channel. So I've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives and more longer form videos. And that is a good place to find them. So this is terrible. My YouTube channel is, if you look up my name, I think it's Holly Fowler, you'll find it.
I'll find you and I'll put it in the links so that everyone listening can just click on them. Tell me about your YouTube. What are some of the topics and the goal and the vision that you have with doing the YouTube videos?
So that is more awareness and educational. And I want it to be a safe and encouraging space for people with chronic illness. And so it's just a collection because, with social media, videos can get lost down the rabbit hole of years gone by. And so I wanted to create one collective space where people can find all that information. So it is about dating and marriage with chronic illness. It's about, I actually share a very personal story about how I chose to wear adult diapers for the first time a few years ago in a flare up. So it's a lot of personal stories, a lot of tips on how to thrive with a chronic illness. And soon I may start doing interviews myself. So that's a fun thing to look out for.
That's wonderful. I highly encourage it because the more stories we can get out there and share, the better. And I am excited to find your YouTube channel and to go listen to the stories myself and the content that you're posting. So thank you for number one, thank you for a wonderful conversation. Two, thank you for all of the resources and the information that you're putting out there for the IBD community. It's just wonderful to know that so many people are creating valuable content that anyone with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis or anyone who knows someone with that can come and learn more about it. So thank you for that and for a wonderful conversation today.
Yes, thank you for putting out such wonderful stories. I think the more stories, the better. So I think there's still so much room for more advocacy and awareness. So thank you for that. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to the Crohn's Fitness Food Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have an IBD story, either as a patient or a family member, that you'd like to share as a guest on this podcast, or if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send me an email at crohnsfitnessfood@gmail.com. And if you'd like to learn more about me and my Crohn's journey, follow me on Instagram using @crohnsfitnessfood or visit my blog, crohnsfitnessfood.com. And finally, remember, be strong, be grateful, and keep going, my fellow warriors.